Hey, this is Professor Homa. Welcome to Web Design Workflow for Graphics for the Web course, and we're going to be going over creating a web page from a composite in Photoshop. This is the composite in Photoshop that we'll be working with. The files that I was just looking at, this is the folder, ex2 JLC site. There's an images folder and a pre-art folder. This composite is in the pre-art folder because it's going to be the one that's preliminary, and we're just going to create images from it that'll eventually get put into the images folder that'll go on the web. So this is the file that we're going to open first, and I've already opened it up. So I'm going to go here and look at my composite. Okay, and this web page is set up as a home page, and it's basically set up with a header, a address bar along the top. Sometimes you could have a navigation bar there as well. The navigation is over on the left side. There's a content area in the middle. There's a sidebar on the right side that has just some pictures, some snapshot type pictures, and just a little tagline on the bottom. So, you know, sometimes this area here and this area in the bottom can be used for different things, but for now we'll kind of work with what we have. And also keep in mind that this page, even though it's set up as a home page, it can be adapted to be all the other pages on the site. And it could be, you know, this sidebar over here with pictures can be changed, it can be taken out. This area of content can extend down further, so there's more room for longer articles or quotes or information. So, you know, but this is meant to be the home page, and that's what we're going to work on first. Okay, just to review what we have here once again, and I'll kind of measure these things as we go. And if you want, you could use the info palette, and you might want to pull it away from the little from the palette here on the side, because it may get put over top of things that you want to look at. And what I want to do here is just describe the parts of this page, and then also you want to write down the information so you don't have to jump back and forth between the Photoshop file. So you could make a little kind of mock-up. You could print it out, make a mock-up, and put notes on it. But I'm going to go over some of that stuff right now just as I demonstrate what the parts of the page are. Now this is fairly simple. The top of this page is a header. Okay, now I have my layers in Photoshop organized the same way. Header, address, nav, section, aside, and footer. Now these are HTML names in HTML5, most of them, which actually indicate parts of the HTML page, basically the structure of it. So the first part is a header, and I'm going to use my marquee tool that'll just kind of put a selection around this top part. And I have guides there, and I used those guides when I first set up my page, when I first built the page. And these are multiple layers, so there's, you know, a tractor on top of a picture of a background, and there's a logo on top of there. So there's lots of different layers. That's why I have it set up with layer folders, because in each folder, you can see when I go into header, there's the logo layer, there's the tractor layer, there's the picture with a layer mask that I created. So lots of things going into the layout of this page. But we're kind of working from the aspect that now we're getting ready to build it in Dreamweaver, and that's what we're going to do. So this first section here, it's actually 840 by 161. I intended it to be 160, but sometimes when you use your marquee, it may move a pixel or two in a different direction. So it's 161 right now, and that's okay. Okay. Also, let me point out first, if I go to image size, this entire layout is 840 pixels wide by 600 high, which is a little bit on the smaller side. A typical web page might be, well, it could be anywhere in the 700s up through 960. You know, that's kind of a typical range of web pages. So this is a little bit more in the middle, and it's meant to kind of float in the middle of of your browser window. Okay, so it's 840 wide. So we know that the width of everything here will be 840. So some of these widths we won't have to worry about the 840 part of it. Okay, so 840 by 600, that's our width and height. This section here, obviously it's going to be 840 wide. It's also going to be 161 high, and we could also shorten that to 160 if we need to. If we want to keep kind of even numbers when we do this. So that's the header. This section here is the header. The next section over here, and I'll draw a marquee through here, this is the address. Okay, we're just calling address, and you can see I'm seeing a little window there, or a little balloon by my marquee that's saying 840 by 26. So this area here is 26 pixels high, and it has a dark green background, and you know, I might want to check that out as well. I'm going to use my eyedropper here and just sample that color, and I could double click on the color, and this is the hex number down here, 344027, and I may want to write that one down so I could use that again when I do my CSS for the page. So that's the background color of that that little area, and that'll also be the background color of the one at the bottom. Okay, also the type that's here, I could just put my cursor in here just to check this out, and I could highlight that, and I could see it's Calibri 16 point. So that's just kind of a generic, Calibri's like an office font, sans serif. That's at 16 point, which is actually default in HTML. While I'm here, I'm going to actually check the bottom one just to double check. This is the footer at the bottom, and this is also 840 by 26. So it's almost the same thing as this one here. The font here is, it's just bold, but it's also, it looks a little bigger. It's like 17 or so. So it looks like it's a little bit bigger. You could make it 17 or 18, but it's Calibri bold. So a little bit bolder at the bottom. And also another thing that we want to keep in mind here, and I'm going to measure from here to here. This would be what's called the padding in CSS, but it's the distance from the left edge to where this text will start, because we can't tab things over in HTML, so we have to use padding. And that's about 226 is the distance for there. So that would be something we'd indicate for the address and also for the footer section. Okay, moving along to the navigation over here, I'm going to highlight this entire section, the entire navigation section. It's almost like a column, and it's coming out about 187. I think I intended it to be 186, but the cursor, the marquee is coming up at 187, which is okay. It almost looks like the marquee's over just a little bit, but like I said, sometimes it'll kind of skew an extra pixel when you use the marquee. But it's 187 by, I believe, 390. Let me check that again. Or 387, and I think that's supposed to be 388, but you know, that's okay. We have an extra pixel, you know, in there somewhere, or maybe it's going to go down to 386. But we'll write down those numbers: 187, 387. Okay. Also, one thing just to keep in mind, up here, I'm just going to mark this. That's about 40 pixels down. So the padding from the top is about 40 pixels. Okay, and the padding from this side over to the first button is, it looks like it's about 20 pixels. So those are the kind of things we want to write down so we don't have to keep going back to Photoshop to check that out. But again, this section is the nav section. Moving across here, we have this section here. This intersection is about 465 pixels wide. And again, that may be 466. Well, we may have to adjust these by 1 pixel here and there because they're coming up as odd numbers. But this section here, again, is 465 by 387, it's saying. And there is margin around here. Now, when we say margin, we just use margin because that's what we're used to describing it as. But actually, it's going to be padding. So I do want to just kind of mark here. Let me click off, and I'll use my marquee again. And the padding here is about 40 from the left side of that section of what's called, and this section will be called section. The padding on the top looks like it's about also 40, and the padding on the right side is a little bit more, and it's about 66. Okay, so 66, 40, 40, that's the padding on that. And again, there's the distance from the top we mentioned also is 40. So this is the section. We could also check out the font here. This middle part looks like it's about 16 point Calibri, just like up here. And there's a header on here, which is 30 point Calibri bold. That would be our H1 tag. So this would be our body copy. This would be our H1 tag inside that section. That is going to be HTML code. Okay, also the last thing over here, this section on the right side is kind of a sidebar section, but we're going to call it a side because that's what Dreamweaver uses, or that's what HTML5 uses to identify almost like a sidebar section. So I'm also going to highlight that with the marquee, and that should be the same as the other one, 387, and this one is 190 in width. So we also, one other thing here, and for both the aside and the nav we should do this. For this one, we just want to check out the background color in case we use this color again, even without the pictures. But I'm going to just click on here, check out the web color, or the hex color. It's basically RGB color 163, 204, 143 converted to hex. It's just a different way of showing the same numbers. A3 is the same thing as 163. CC is the same thing as CO4 or 204, and 8F is the same thing as 143. So that's look up a hex system, you'll see how to do those. But anyway, A3, CC, 8F, that's that greenish color. And the color for the nav section, I'll double click on that, and that's F4, EC, CC. Okay, so that's basically getting together our sections. Let review one more time. Header up here, address, nav, section, aside, and footer at the bottom.